Olive. I am the Director of Brand Development at Stateless, where we help build fashion startups. And today we're going to talk about brand positioning. And if you don't know what brand positioning is, that's quite all right. We'll cover it. And yeah, so just while we're waiting for some people to join, I'm just going to add a pin. One second. Pin comment, great. So yeah, we'll just give a second for people to join. But again, today we're talking about brand positioning. And so I'll just kind of cover the general principles of it and how I like to think about it, how I like to develop brand positioning, and then I can answer any questions that you guys have. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. All right, we can go ahead and get started. So first, what is brand positioning? Brand positioning is the strategy you use to differentiate your company. So it's a really important thing to think about right at the beginning of starting a business, because you want your business to succeed, and in order to succeed, you have to have a key differentiator, something that helps you stand out in the market landscape, and something that is going to make customers want to keep coming back to you as opposed to someone else that might be in your relative space. So in developing a brand positioning, I break it down into three categories. One is getting to know your market landscape. Two is how are you filling a void or solving a problem in that market landscape. And then three is how are you creating an emotional connection to an audience. And maybe that emotional connection is one of your differentiators. So back to the top, knowing your market landscape. So getting to understand that is basically, hopefully when you've come up with the decision to start a company, you are, it's something that you're passionate about, something that you already kind of are immersed in the culture of it, and something that you really like. So you can kind of start to, jot down, an initial list of companies in your space that sell similar types of products or similar ideas to what you want to create. And then you want to do some thorough research to kind of go beyond that and maybe discover a couple other brands that are in your space that you don't know about. So you can do that by Google search, where you can just think about every possible angle of keywords and things in your space that can kind of lead to categories, subcategories that can lead to understanding brands that you discovering new brands in your space. And then also beyond Google, you want to search on Instagram, you want to search on Facebook, you want to talk to your friends and family, your friends of friends, your Tinder dates, just kind of understand, ask them, where are you buying this specific kind of product? And then you also, once you kind of have that list, and you feel like you have done a pretty exhaustive search and can kind of see the landscape, then you can assess what's missing from this landscape. What problem can I solve, or how can I create something new in this space? So the more you understand it, the more you can identify an opportunity. So that leads us to the second thing, which is what void are you filling in the market, or what problem are you solving? And so an example of this would be like Casper identified in the mattress space that there was a serious problem in the customer experience and the experience of buying a mattress. So they recognized that opportunity, created a great brand and user experience. Oh, I might not be on this. Okay, sorry, just technical difficulty for a second. But yeah, so they recognize that opportunity, and so in order to kind of differentiate themselves, they really positioned themselves to be the sort of leaders of the new way of buying a mattress, and made it really easy and simple, and that was their key differentiator. And but then you also kind of want to have an additional layer beyond just solving a practical problem. You want to have a brand that has emotional resonance. So really thinking about what do my customers care about, or maybe there's an opportunity for people that are buying this thing that also care about this thing, and so you can kind of combine that. So an example of that is I like to refer to the brand Camp Collection. Camp Collection did a great job of, they make sportswear and sort of, tank top, shorts, t-shirts, things like that, but they added this layer of tying their brand to the culture and nostalgia around summer camp. And so they identified an audience that has an emotional connection and love for the idea and memories they have associated with summer camp, and kind of use that to inspire what their clothing is and what their brand aesthetic is. And then that allowed them to kind of separate themselves from everyone else that's selling shorts and t-shirts and things like that, because now they have this sort of added layer of emotional connection and a reason for people to buy their shorts from them as opposed to someone else. So that's an example of a company that is purely founded really on an emotional connection as opposed to practical problem solving. But ideally, you want to create a company that has both, that is solving a problem, filling a void, and creating, has a brand, layers to the brand that create an emotional connection. So I can take you just quickly through some companies that I've started, and just take you through my thinking in how I kind of developed my brand positioning. So just give me a second. So one company is my shoe company called the Rafter Club. So with the Rafter Club, first, I knew I wanted to start a company that was in a category that I already had a deep understanding of and passion for, so that I had it, an initial, just like, I knew what questions to ask, I knew where to research, I knew where to kind of dig deeper, and what questions to ask to gain a deeper understanding of my market landscape. So that category was basketball. I have a lifelong love and understanding of basketball, and particularly basketball sneakers. It's just something that I've collected and cared about my whole life. So I knew when I was starting to assess the market landscape and wanting to start a company in that space, I knew where to look. I was already following a lot of these brands on Instagram. I already had an understanding of what that audience cared about because I was that audience. So that part was important. And then as far as the problem-solving aspect of it, I chose to start a basketball dress shoe company because the opportunity that I saw was that dress shoes for men have been the same for over 100 years. And so if I could kind of bring the creativity and everything that goes into the development of basketball sneakers, I could create a new kind of dress shoe and kind of change that game and create the opportunity, like we were talking about with emotional connection. If I tie dress shoes to basketball, I'm creating the first form of emotional connection to a men's dress shoe that really exists, because there's no one really lining up out the door for the next release of the next Cole Haan the way that they do for a Jordan or something like that. So realizing that dress shoes to this point have only really served a practical purpose. So if you can kind of add a layer of emotional connection, you're creating a really strong differentiator to all of the other dress shoe brands that are out there. So I had the passion for it and inherent understanding of it, so I could ask the right questions to have an assessment of the market landscape and realize that there was no one really doing what I was doing, especially at my price point, kind of looking at the different sort of, anyone who was creating something slightly similar to the idea that I had, what are they selling it at? I found that they were selling it for over $1,000 a pair. So that's an opportunity. And then, realizing that basically, in talking to people, everyone is buying the same kind of shoes from the same place, and they actually really care about maybe having something different in their life that really can, fill this purpose in their wardrobe. So that's one example of just kind of how I assessed each of those three sort of things in developing a brand position. And then the other thing, another example is just Stateless, the company that I work for. We help build fashion startups, like I said at the top. And so in developing our brand positioning for that, first, when we entered the space, we were one of the first to offer fashion consulting and one of the first to offer the opportunity to have an outsourced team to develop your apparel and your brand for your company. But you also kind of want to have, additional layers, especially as you evolve and other people start to enter your space or copy what you're doing or whatever. We wanted to know what are the important things that are going to keep us unique and keep the quality of our brand and message alive. And so thinking about, okay, we want to be professional. We want to have a slight edge to our brand so that we show how, on top of the fashion landscape we are, and that we're not just for boutiques, we're for all kinds of fashion companies, and how do we communicate that? And just again, just continuing to think about this sort of what other companies are doing and how are we making sure that we continue to stand out. So it's not just, brand positioning is not just at the top when you first start in your company, although that's the most important time, but it's also good to continue to assess it and continue to think, okay, what's important to us? What makes us stand out? Are we continuing to do that? Are other people starting to compete too heavily or do the same thing too much? Do we need to add, a new direction or think about ways that we can continue to stand out? So it's an ever ongoing process as much as it is a really key foundational process. So yeah, I feel like that covers it. I'll just to recap, it's brand positioning is what sets you apart. And in developing the thinking of what brand positioning is, you want to know what your market landscape is, what problem you're solving in that market landscape, and how are you creating an emotional connection to an audience. So now I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, I'm the director of brand development at Stateless, so I have a lot of experience in developing brands, and particularly fashion brands, and I oversee a team of graphic designers and writers and photographers and web developers. So I can answer questions that kind of cover that sort of broad category of creating a brand identity and how it all comes together. So I'll just let you guys ask any questions. I think I'll just scroll through right now and go through, see what questions people have. Do you enough business through Rafter Club to make a living, or is it something that supplements your overall income? Yeah, so Rafter is definitely a side project for me right now. Stateless is my main gig, but I just thought it was a good example of just taking you through my line of thinking. One thing that is super important that other than identifying an opportunity is having the investment dollars to really market it and get it out there, especially if you're introducing a new concept like I was, where I'm taking a thing that's been the same for 100 years and trying to reimagine it and create a new line of thinking in a space. That's definitely a good opportunity, but it requires a lot of money to educate people on that and get people connected to it. So I just haven't done the marketing for it yet because I'm really right now focused on my clients and developing all of their brands. But it's something that I enjoy and have a lot of passion for and hope to flesh out someday. Does anyone have any other questions? All right. So if no one else has any other questions, I really appreciate you tuning in, and I really appreciate your time. And you can reach us at stateless on Makers Row, so makersrow.com/stateless. Also, you can find me on Embark.live, which is Makers Row new platform for category experts, and so I have some videos on there that should be helpful. So thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon.